Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Stronger Than Steel podcast, hosted by myself, John Keir, and my buddy, Austin Davidson.
Ayo.
It is Season 6, Episode 26 today, talking Pittsburgh Steelers and Green Bay Packers. Looking like it's going to be a tough matchup for the Steelers at 1-2, and the Packers sitting at 2-1 after beating the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football last weekend. Having a little bit of time to process the Steelers' defeat at the hands of the Cincinnati Bengals, and then watching the Bengals defeat the Jaguars on Thursday night. Are you still feeling as negative about this team as we were on Monday and Tuesday, or have your thoughts changed at all about this team?
Oh, I feel exactly the same. I just don't feel good. I mean, we'll have to see if Zach Banner's activated. That is the one thing that changed. I was under the impression that from the first set of Mike Tomlin talking to the media was that, oh great, no one on IR is going to be activated. Then they opened up Zach Banner's window, which doesn't mean he'll be back, but there is a better chance that he is back this week rather than what I thought before. So we'll see that. I might feel better for that because now it's even more scary because Chukwuma Okorafor and Rashad Coward are out. So if Zach Banner's not back, you're going to have Joe Haig at right tackle. You're going to have no depth at guard. It's all a scary, scary time. But yeah, I don't feel better. How about you?
All right, and in regards to Banner himself, his 3-week window for practicing has opened up, which, like you said, does not mean that he's coming back this week, but it could mean that he could play this weekend. I mean, probably not, but it could theoretically mean that he could, and he has an opportunity to return in any of the next 3 weeks, and would probably, barring a setback, would be expected to rejoin the team sometime in that period of time.
Yeah, that would be ideal as if he could come back this week, but it's still a long shot for that. It's somewhere between these 21 days, as you said. Or he's gone for the season. Yeah,
that's true. And you don't want to rush him back either, because you don't want to re-aggravate something now. So, I know that the offensive line needs help, but you also don't want to push things with him because if you aren't careful, you do lose him for the season. So
yeah, it's much better to take your time sometimes with these things. I mean, it's a long season. There's an extra game now. It's long, so it's the wins aren't as important as they used to be last season. Still very important in a 17-game season. 17-game, 18-week. But yeah, health is most important for the long run.
On the practice squad, the Steelers currently have Chaz Green and John LeGlue, as well as Malcolm Pridgeton as their 3 offensive linemen in reserve there. So I would expect probably Green or LeGlue to be called up. LeGlue has that versatility, and Green has former starting experience.
Yeah, there's a chance for both of them to be elevated at the same time, too, because of the lack of depth on the tackle and guard.
All right, and since we kind of started talking about Banner today, why don't we kind of get into what else is going on with the Steelers? As far as their current injuries, there have been 3 players ruled out of Sunday's game. That is reserve defensive tackle Carlos Davis, who misses. Is this his second or third straight game that he's missed? I know he missed last week as well.
Third straight game.
So obviously something with Davis has either gotten worse or is ended up being a bigger deal than the team thought. I would expect that they think he's probably going to return soon if they haven't placed him on injured reserve yet, but if they are expecting him to be out an extended period, I wouldn't be surprised to see him return or go to injured reserve tomorrow. He was a part of the initial 53, was he not?
Yeah, he was.
Okay. So that would not matter then. He would be eligible to return then. So I don't know. Clearly there's something going on that the team was either not expecting or something that happened after he got injured that got worse. So that's a concern, but he will not have to, he wasn't probably going to play a ton. Isaiah Buggs has been taking the snaps at nose tackle instead. Elsewhere, guard Rashad Coward is out with an ankle injury. This is unfortunate for him because with the state of the line, there have been a lot of calls for potential changes in the lineup, although I don't know that they were necessarily going to happen. Coward was kind of in competition with B.J. Finney to be one of the first guys off the bench and had been a game day inactive all year, but perhaps stood a chance to play in his first game of the season with Chukwuma Okorafor also being ruled out with a concussion that we saw last week, but obviously with Coward being ruled out as well. The Steelers are short 2 linemen, including 1 starter and a reserve defensive lineman in this game. And elsewhere, just Chase Claypool is questionable. He suffered a hamstring injury on Thursday and did not practice on Friday. So the fact that he didn't practice on Friday was concerning, and given everything that we know about the way this team tends to handle things if they don't practice, it doesn't look like it's going to be good for Chase Claypool. He might still play, but there are doubts now.
Yeah, it sounds like he's a true game time decision at the moment. Going from limited in one practice, mostly he was limited because he got hurt that practice, to not participating on Friday is never a good thing. Only having one more rest day in between, not good. Likely out, so that's something to monitor. We'll see. Saturday will be more telling. Well, if it's really serious, he's going to be ruled out Saturday. If it's like, okay, it's not that bad, he might be able to play Sunday, it will truly be a game time decision. That's how I feel about it right now, though. I feel like it's a game time decision. I don't feel like it's super serious, at least not right now.
Elsewhere, as you might have been able to gather based on what was going on with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, they will both be returning to play. They were not listed on the final injury report with a designation, so they will be returning to action, hopefully full-time, which should provide a huge boost for this defense and a much-needed one at that.
I apologize. I missed... My audio just cut out. What was the last
That's
thing you
okay.
said?
I was just saying the fact that Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt will be returning to the lineup should provide a much-needed boost to the defense.
Yeah, no injury designations for those two, so that's really good. No injury designation for Deontay Johnson either, or Juju Smith-Schuster, so otherwise pretty good. We got a lot of pretty high-profile players back for this game, other than losing Chase Claypool.
And what are the Steelers potentially losing in a guy like Claypool, who has been pretty quiet so far this year, but as we know had a pretty good rookie season and has that big play threat?
Yeah, it's tough, but so far it's not been very good, because there was a chart the other day. It was like catch percentage versus separation, and Claypool is really struggling to separate. I mean, a lot of his routes are those fly routes or the vertical routes, which go straight down the field.
The
and
9 routes.
A lot of it has been like, chuck it up to Chase Claypool and see if we get a pass interference or he makes a really good catch, and that's kind of how it's been. It's not been getting a lot of separation, so on that chart, he was the worst of the Steelers starting wide receivers of catch percentage versus distance separation, so hopefully having Deontay Johnson back is better. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like Deontay Johnson for Chase Claypool
You'd rather have
might be
Johnson.
a good trade. Yeah, Johnson creates
If this
separation.
team isn't providing... I was just going to say, if this team isn't providing big plays, then you'd rather have Johnson.
Yeah, I think he's better for the short passing game and just more in general as a guy Ben can throw to. It's more consistent, is what I was trying to get at. Really struggling to get out my words today.
Well, and a lot of the things that we've seen is that and we'll get into the discussion about the offense in a little bit, but we've seen a ton of issues with Ben holding onto the ball or the line not protecting. And part of the reason that Ben's holding onto the ball is because guys aren't getting open or because he's unwilling to throw the ball. And the first part of it, guys aren't getting open, it's something that we've heard about, but we've seen a lot of examples now lately where he has been holding onto the ball because guys just aren't getting open. And a lot of plays, none of them are getting open. So we'll get into a bigger discussion about that. But a guy like Johnson, who is the only true threat when it comes to getting open without needing help, getting him back, I think, is just crucial for this offense, because if he is the difference between the offense that we saw against the Bengals and the one against the Raiders, which granted was not that big of a difference, although it kind of felt like it, didn't it? I think that's a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it is. So that is what I'd rather have them both, but if it's one or the other, I'd rather have Deontay Johnson for the offense. I think it's better, for the most part, to have him.
Not to mention, Johnson is the true X receiver, and James Washington is more of a Z, and Chase Claypool does play the Z in a bit of the slot, so it's easier to replace his snaps than it is a guy like Deontay Johnson. So it's looking better for the Steelers injury report, but obviously they have those 4 players either out or questionable, and they still have their players on injured reserve that we had talked about before. So still no Anthony McFarland, still no Stephon Tuitt right now. By the way, it sounds like Tuitt might be out for a little bit while longer, which is a big blow to a defense missing Tyson Alualu too.
Yeah, and no word on McFarland, which also implies that McFarland will be out for a while. But they might just not want McFarland back for this year. I mean, he might not have a spot on the roster currently, or at least that they feel. Tuitt definitely has a spot on the roster, but yeah, it sounds like he's not close to ready, and that is concerning that his 21-day window isn't opening. It means that we'll have to wait till Week 8 to see if he even comes back for the season. And Week 8 is just when he's eligible to reopen his 21-day window again, so he might not even be ready for Week 8. We might be getting to Week 11 and he'd come back. And down the stretch, if the Steelers are still competing, that'd be nice, but having Tuitt as soon as possible would be so much better.
If you're not careful and the team doesn't start playing better, you could be entering a situation where he might just be shut down for the season.
Yeah, I mean, if they keep going where they're going, they're not going to really be into it. Like, worst case scenario, you want to be 5-6 at week. You would want to be 5-5, I guess, because after week 10, I guess 4-6 is manageable. I guess 4-6 at week 10 for him to come back for you to still be competitive is manageable. You can't really be worse than that entering week 11.
All right, let's look at the Packers side of things. Looks like there's a lot more going on there. Their receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling is out with a hamstring injury. So would you call him the number 2? I'd probably consider him and Allen Lazard. If you want to call 1 2 and the other 3, I wouldn't disagree with you all that much, but certainly is one of the secondary options for Aaron Rodgers. Will not be playing in this one.
Yeah, I think he's now on IR. They're at least talking about putting Marcus Valdez-Scantling on IR for the short-term version. But, yeah, now we're going to see a little bit more Randall Cobb this week because he is forgettably a Packer again.
Oh, let's also make sure that we mention that it is conceivable that one Equinemius St. Brown could be called up to the active roster. He's been on the team for a couple of years but is on the practice squad, so he's a guy with some good experience too that might get called up. Maybe we'll get a hat. I don't know, but that's a name to look out for at least.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, he was an active roster guy just last year, and he played meaningful snaps on offense. That is definitely an option for them with Valdez-Scantling out.
All right, what else do we have on the injury report here? I'm seeing Elton Jenkins, one of their offensive linemen with an ankle injury, and cornerback Kevin King are doubtful with it, and he has a concussion. Kevin King is a guy, man, you want to talk about regretful picks. The Packers taking Kevin King with their first-round pick in 2017 have to be just kicking themselves with TJ Watt sitting on the other side of the lineup this week.
Yeah, that is super tough. And 2017, isn't that also the year Tre'Davious White came out as well? Or am I incorrect on that?
You are correct,
yeah.
But I'm pretty sure he went earlier.
I thought Chiefs were at 28, and didn't they move up to 14 with the Bills? And the Bills then took Tre'Davious White at 28? I don't... That sounds...
You have a very good memory, sir, so that is correct, but the Packers were picking 29th.
Oh, okay, so it didn't matter. All right. Fair.
The Steelers picked 30th, and the Packers were 29th because they lost their respective championship games that season.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I forgot where where the Packers were picking in that scenario. But yeah, they missed out on T.J. Watt. Now they got Rashawn Gary, who looks like he's getting better, but not T.J. Watt. More closer to Bud Dupree in his second year.
If I may add another aspect to that, I forgot about this. The Packers were actually picking 29th, and I did forget about this. I thought they were going to take Watt. They actually didn't pick 29th. They traded to Cleveland. They traded that pick to Cleveland. That pick became David Njoku, and the Browns didn't need an edge rusher since they had just drafted Myles Garrett with the first pick, and the Packers had then the first pick in the second round, which they then used on Kevin King. Also, you had just mentioned Rashawn Gary. Zadarius Smith is getting back surgery now and is expected to miss a significant amount of time. So, with that being the case, you just mentioned Rashawn Gary. It's going to be a big season for him, or at least a big opportunity for him.
Yeah, I saw you picked him up in fantasy. Big believer. Well, not big believer. Well, at least he's getting the snaps.
This week I am.
Oh, yeah. You started him. I respect it. But
I was just looking at, because Zadarius Smith was an important part, and the Packers not having him is important. See, the Packers right now, their two edge rushers, Rashawn Gary is unproven but a great athlete, and on the other side, Preston Smith is more like a Bud Dupree player who doesn't win a lot one-on-one, but is a high-effort player. So that does play into the Steelers' favor, but we didn't mention Smith off the top because he was already on injured reserve. He's just expected to miss most of, if not all, the season.
Yeah, he was supposed to come back after next week, but they just said he just recently got back surgery, and now they're just hoping it's not season-ending. They're talking about it being season-ending now.
What else is going on here? Vernon Scott, Jack Heflin, and Chris Barnes are all questionable in this week. You have notes on them?
Yeah, so Barnes logged 2 limited practices to close the week. Scott was limited all week, and Heflin was a late addition as limited participant on Friday. So if any are in danger to miss the game, Heflin is probably the most because he left practice early on Friday. His injury was most recent, so we'll see that. But none of them are starters anyway, so it doesn't exactly matter. It'd be a hit to depth because Heflin is actually their only backup defensive end on their roster at the moment. So they'd be really, really weak at outside linebackers. I mean, you're down to already Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary. The only other outside linebackers they have are Chauncey Rivers and Jonathan Garvin. So without Heflin, I'm thinking they'd have to, if anything were to happen, they'd have to move one of those outside linebackers to the outside or access their practice squad and bring up someone. Yeah, because currently, if Heflin can't go, they literally have no one behind Dean Lowry and Kingsley Keke, unless you put on T.J. Slayton, who's a nose tackle.
Let me check their roster and see the name if they have any names there. Getting into the actual preview between these two teams, the Packers, a team that got crushed by the Saints on opening day in Jacksonville of all places, and have rebounded, looking better against the Lions, but still not great, and then had that dramatic comeback win against the 49ers. Where are you at with this Packers team just 3 weeks into this young season? Do you think that their week 1 loss was more of a kind of an aberration and they're still a good team, or do you think that they have more to show?
So first, I just want to say they do have one defensive lineman on their practice squad. He's R.J. McIntosh. He's only listed as defensive lineman, so he looks like the defensive end type. He's only 286 pounds, so I'm pretty sure he's more of a DE than a DT, so he'd come up. As for your question, I feel like the Packers are in the same spot that they have been in the past, 6-7 years, or so on and so forth. It's like they always blow that one bad game. Like when they lose big. I feel like more than anything, and really, I think that it's just a reflection of their season. Because I remember last year thinking they were the worst 13-3 team that I'd ever seen. Because those 3 losses were just blowout losses. Every single one was terrible. So I feel like this is nothing new for the Packers. They're just gonna suffer those really weird out of nowhere losses. but I still think that they're a decent team. I think Aaron Jones is playing well. I feel like Devonte Adams is getting his feet back under him because now Aaron Rodgers is not having that game he had week 1. I feel like they're okay. I feel like the offense is pretty solid. The defense still could use some work. I feel like they've suffered from the injuries. I mean, losing your best pass rusher is always going to suck. Like, it's how it is. We saw how it was without TJ Watt. Now, Zadarius Smith isn't no TJ Watt, but he is still a fairly good player. Like, I'd say probably a top 15 edge rusher. I feel like I could say that with confidence. So it's tough to lose a guy like that and still play really well. So I still think that cutting this short, I think that the Packers are still a solid team. I think they could get to 12 wins this year, especially with the extra game, 12 or 11. I think that's achievable for them.
So you were mentioning the whole unimpressive 13-win season. That was 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, they had 13 wins. They had 13 wins, but they seemed unimpressive because they're 3 regular season losses. 2 of them came by at least, I think, 15 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they got blown out when they lost.
And they didn't win many of their games by double digits, just looking down. I mean, they finished with a top 10 defense, but they were league average on offense, just 15th in points per game. And then last year, their defense regressed a tad, but their offense went to number 1 in the NFL in terms of points per game, so they were far more impressive last year. Didn't have any of those they had the 1 blowout loss to the Buccaneers, but outside of that, the other 3 losses they had were not bad. And then they open up this year with the blowout loss, and it's just kind of like, well, you know, all the talk this offseason was about the whole Aaron Rodgers drama, and you wondered if maybe that was having something to do with the slow start. But they've kind of turned things around, but this is still a team lacking cohesion right now, and a team that fancied itself to be a contender in not just the NFC North and in the NFC playoffs, but potentially for a Super Bowl. This is a team that, under its current coaching staff, has won 13 games in both of their seasons as they've been in place. So it makes sense that they've been competing and holding the idea that they are going to compete for a Super Bowl. Yeah, their offense obviously still runs through Aaron Rodgers, but they've got a lot of the Pittsburgh Steelers triplets. I don't want to call it a disease, but the issues that those mid-20-teen Steelers teams had, which is it's just the quarterback, top receiver, and running back running the offense for the most part, and the defense is kind of suspect. It might be a better defense than the one the Steelers had, but this is still clearly a team with some flaws.
Oh, yeah. They for sure have some flaws. Their offensive line is also not playing as well as it was last year, so that is also going to hurt the team. So they are not where they are offensively last year, for sure. I still think they have some solid pieces, because I think I like Robert Tonyan. I think he does a good job from the tight end position for them to go with Devonte Adams when Devonte Adams is being doubled. So I think they miss Jamal Williams, though. That's something that I would never feel like I would never say, but I feel like they missed the running back duo they had, because being able to toss out of the backfield to both their running backs was super helpful for them. So I think that's actually also hurting their offense as well, because they don't really have that anymore. They have A.J. Dillon instead, and he's solid.
A bruiser. He's not really a catcher.
Yeah, he's not a pass catcher. He's not what Jamal Williams was. So for what Jamal Williams was doing in their passing game, which he's now brought to Detroit, I think they missed that as well. So they're not as good as last year, still solid, but they do have those holes.
And obviously the number one thing to do with this offense is to try to slow down Devonte Adams. And if you think about the game against Buffalo, the Steelers successfully held one Stephon Diggs in check. Adams is a bit of a different story. He's a slightly different receiver in terms of physicality, but he's still one of the best and has been one of the most productive receivers in the NFL over the past half decade. How do you think the Steelers are going to approach taking him away? Because they traditionally, over the last few years, have not been traveling cornerbacks, so expect the Packers to try to move him around. I'm sure we'll see some bracket coverage, but we've seen a lot more zone coverage from the Steelers than we have in recent years, at least to start.
Yeah, for Devonte Adams, I think he is like a top 3 wide receiver, but I just feel comfortable with the defense. I'm not really doing anything special for him. I know that James Pierre is young and probably not ready for Devonte Adams, but I'm putting faith in him with the pass rush mostly put back together. I'm putting faith in him. I always have faith in Joe Hayden and Cameron Sutton. I also am putting faith into him. I think that the I'm essentially banking on the pass rush returning to form with Alex Highsmith and T.J. Watt returning to be able to provide their efforts. Because without them, it was really tough last week. But I mean, T.J. Watt before he got injured was playing amazing. Like he was absolutely destroying everyone he went up against. He wasn't going up against schlubs. Like, well, he was against
Alex
the Raiders
Leatherwood.
before he got hurt. Yeah, but against the Bills, that was more impressive, and he did really well. But yeah, so as for the cornerbacks, to go back to the actual question, I'm not really doing anything special. Like I'll definitely give some safety help. I would on occasional plays where it's like I feel most on if I had to put the most uncomfortable, I'd feel most uncomfortable with James Pierre. If James Pierre is on that side of the field where Devonte Adams is lined up, then that's where I give him a little bit extra help. But I'm not even doing that all the time. I want to see if the pass rush can hit home first before I super worry about Devonte Adams.
Are you trying to do what the Steelers did in the first few games this year and just try to bring 4 only?
I would bring more this time, honestly. I would at least do it a little bit more than we've seen. I mean, they really haven't been doing it. They've been relying on 4, which is kind of ironic because now that you have the pass rushers back, it now makes more sense to just put 4. But I feel like they just need to change it up. Like, the predictability on offense is kind of carrying over to the defense. Not as much, but like not completely ruling out part of the game and making it kind of... I wouldn't say it's easier to break down, but I feel like if you're not expecting the blitz, like you know that, okay, now I just have to figure out who's going to be in coverage in what spots. Like, so I feel like the blitz should be brought in for that reason, not for applying extra pressure, because I think pressure will be better with Watt back and Highsmith back. But yeah, so I'm bringing a little bit more blitz in this game than we've seen. Not a crazy amount more, but more.
I think when you had Tyson Alualu and in theory could have had Stephon Tuitt, when you have a fully healthy lineup, I think that's something that you can do because it's kind of a luxury. But when you're missing a couple of those pieces, I think it has to be something that becomes matchup dependent. And I do get a bit nervous about blitzing a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who is, he's not a burner. He's never been the fastest quarterback in the league, but he's still deceptively fast. He can still break out for a decent run whenever he needs to. So for
He's
that
got
reason,
some legs.
he does, yeah. So for that reason, I don't think I'd be bringing only 3 pass rushers. I think I might bring just 3, maybe like probably less than 5 times all game. I'm bringing at least 4, and I'd probably up my blitz rate. I was going to say more than they did against the Bengals, but the Bengals only dropped back 19 times, so I don't remember if the Steelers did a whole lot, even if they didn't a lot, because there were just so few plays against, they didn't really have the opportunity to do so. I would try to bring the heat a little bit more, though, this time.
Are you a fan of blitzing against the run?
Run blitzing?
Yeah, are you a fan of run blitzing?
Well, I mean, that depends on the game flow. It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
I was just curious. Is it 2nd and 1? Is it 1st and 10? What's the situation? I guess it depends. That's kind of my answer, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Made me think of that.
Why? Do you have an opinion? Like, and are you thinking for this game you would want to see more run blitzes?
No, because Aaron Jones is really good with the ball in his hand. So I heard we were talking about the blitzing. I was like, huh. I was still processing in my head. I was like, would this be a good game to like do a lot more run blitzes than we see? Because I haven't really been blitzing at all. And then before I got to the conclusion that, oh no, wait, Aaron Jones is really good out of the backfield as a pass catcher. It's probably not a good idea. I'd already asked the question. Sometimes I go on autopilot.
Aaron Rodgers so far has attempted 88 passes. Aaron Jones has 41 carries. A.J. Dillon has 15. The overall numbers on the ground haven't been super productive, and plus they're going to be most likely missing. Most likely going to be missing Elton Jenkins, their starting left tackle. So with that being the case, I mean, you should be able to get a good matchup with Highsmith or Melvin Ingram on on Elton Jenkins on whoever Elton Jenkins' replacement is. My apologies. Yosh Nijman, I believe is how you say that name, or Dennis Kelly. Probably Dennis Kelly. I don't know if he would switch sides or not. I don't know. I feel more comfortable about the Steelers' ability to defend the run in this game than last week. The Bengals did have some nice runs, but I can only recall like 4 or 5 running plays where the Steelers were in real trouble, and most of them were the result of inexperienced, edge rushers or defensive linemen being involved in the play. I don't think it should be as much of an issue this week, so I don't know that I'd be that overly aggressive with it this time around.
Yeah, it's probably better to not run blitz as much in this one.
Bottom line, you're trying to slow down Devonte Adams and see if the Packers can beat you with players other than Adams. Guys like Robert Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, MVS is out, so Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Aaron Jones. You give them that stuff, and I mean, Devonte Adams is going to get his targets, he's going to get his catches, but I mean, I think I'd even take 10 for 100 and no touchdowns. Like I think I'd take that, to be honest with you.
I think I would too. I think that's a good stat line because Devonte Adams is going to get his. That week 1 was a fluke because Aaron Rodgers played bad. But when Aaron Rodgers doesn't play bad, which is most of the time, Devonte Adams is going to get his catches. Like, you could expect him to get at least 60 yards in this game.
I'm trying to think of the last time besides that where, like, he truly hasn't had an impactful game. I mean, he's just been off the charts lately. And there is trouble because you don't want to focus so much on him that you're concerned about getting beaten. See, that's kind of where I'm find myself being nervous because in years past, especially the last couple years, taking those other guys one-on-one and trusting them to handle their assignment deep hasn't been an issue. But so far this year, the Henry Ruggs touchdown and the Jamar Chase touchdown, we've seen this defense getting, beaten over the top for the big play, and you just can't have that. Taking away the biggest weapon in the game is great and all, but if you can't prevent those big plays, or at the very least can't get them on the ground when they catch it, then there's you're not going to be very successful.
So with Devonte Adams, the last time he had under 5 catches in a game was week 2 of last year against Detroit. He only had 3 catches, and something in my head is telling me he got injured. Oh, no, okay. I don't have to say in my head because I see it. He got injured that game. That is the reason why, because that was Sunday 9/20. He didn't play again until October 18th. Okay. So, the smallest amount of catches he's had when he's not been injured in the past 2 seasons, including playoffs, is 6. And the smallest yardage amount is 42. And that was against the Panthers last year. It was 42 yards. He had 7 catches in that game, so not his lowest catch total. 6 catches for 46 yards against the Bears in their last game before the postseason last year as well. So there's that. But it's not very often that he gets not a lot of yards. It takes him being injured is really what it takes.
Look, this is ultimately going to come down to how the Steelers secondary plays, I think. The front line should still get good pressure. Maybe not as much as they did against Josh Allen in week 1, but they should get similar amounts of pressure. But Josh Allen also played a bad game that week. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is going to play badly. This is really a game where I'd like to see an emergence from the inside linebackers. We've talked about them a lot coming into this year. Devin Bush coming off the ACL injury, and Joe Schobert being acquired from Jacksonville. Schobert's been okay. I feel like Bush has been okay too. those two guys need to start producing a little bit more. And you know what? So does Minkah Fitzpatrick too. He's been okay, I think, but it sounds like by all accounts that he's been doing more of a do-it-all type of situation, a different role on defense as opposed to just being the deep center fielder. He's been put in a bunch of different situations, and while I think that it's helpful in some aspects, I don't know that it's helping this defense on the back end when, especially last week, that they were struggling to, keep a lid on things.
Yeah, I mean, he's been vocal that he's not even comfortable with that kind of stuff. He wanted out of Miami. The whole reason he left Miami was because they were moving him around in places that put him in uncomfortable positions. He wasn't good until he got to Pittsburgh, where he got to stay in a, for the most part, pretty same role. They started using him more down the stretch in more versatile roles, but I think that he should be left where he's best. I don't think he's going to be like, I demand out of Pittsburgh because I'm being used different, but that's literally exactly what happened in Miami, so who knows. He definitely needs to step up. The inside linebackers, I feel like, have been okay. I do want more from them, but they're not all pros. Actually, was Joe Schobert a second team all pro once? He might have been.
I'm pretty sure he was. Well, he's regardless, that's not who he is now, but he's still adequate.
Yeah, he's adequate. So he's playing all right, but I do expect more out of my young all-pro safety that is not playing at an all-pro level. I feel like he's not even currently playing at a Pro Bowl level. He's just playing okay. And okay is it's exactly okay, but you want him to play better than that. I want to see him get up to Pro Bowl level, especially when he was an all-pro just last season. So I want to see more out of him as well.
What do you think about Devin Bush in terms of where he should be right now? Because he hasn't been playing great, but again, coming off the ACL injury, missed the Week 2 game against the Raiders. Where should we realistically be thinking he should be, and where does he need to be by year's end?
I don't know. I expect him to have more tackles through 2 games. I guess technically 3. I definitely expect him to have more through 3, but I wasn't accounting for an injury. But I feel like I want to see more of that. I just want to see more tackling from him, more, because he's supposed to be like a sideline-to-sideline guy, a guy that can basically defend the whole field from the middle linebacker position, a field general, if you will. I want to see more of that. I want to see better tackling from him. There's really only one play that comes to mind, and it's that Tyler Boyd touchdown. I feel like he was the main missed tackle guy there, I guess I'll call it. But he was one of the 3, and I want to see better from that. I just want to see more tackles from him. I think that would be enough. I feel like most people are going to not be okay with that. They want to see more turnovers, and I think I want to see more turnovers too, but at the basis, I just want to see him be a more sound tackler and get more tacklers. I want him to be all over the field. I want him to be just absolutely running with no regard for human life around the field.
What is a successful day for this defense?
Against Packers or just in general?
Today. Well, this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Against the Packers, I think if they hold the Packers to 20 points, they've done a good job. I feel like that's a tough offense to defend against. I know they're mostly relying on their top 3 guys between their trio of Aaron Rodgers, Devonte Adams, and Aaron Jones. But I think that with the other people that they do have, like, I've always been a fan of Lazard. I know that he's not really having a big year this year. He's kind of, stuck behind him the depth chart.
Well, he'll be thrust into it this week. He'll be number 2 on the depth chart.
Yeah, so I'm higher on him than a lot of other people, so I really like him. Randall Cobb is still there. He hasn't really done much, but I like what they have on offense, so I think holding Aaron Rodgers to 20 points would be a good job, personally. My numbers are 20 points, at least 2 sacks, and it's really hard to get a turnover against Rodgers, so I'd say 1 turnover in general I'd be happy with, because it's probably easier to get a fumble in this game than an interception against Rodgers. He's just not a guy that really turned over the ball much in his entire career.
I think that magic number for points, where not even taking into account the Steelers' offense, I think you're looking right around 23, 24. And I do think that you need multiple takeaways in this one. Just because you don't know if the offense is going to be able to keep themselves from turning it over or not. Furthermore, I need to stop seeing big plays given up at the end of the half. That stuff has to stop. The explosive plays are my number one concern. I know Devonte is going to get his during the course of the game, but it's about a big part of it is about being successful on first down. And, you know, I think I want the Steelers to blitz, but I also am okay with them only rushing for on obvious passing situations. I don't think there's a situation where you need to bother doing that unless if there's a situation where you aren't getting home with your four-man rush at all. And barring injury, I think the Steelers should have a favorable matchup, even though the offensive line is solid, but they're missing their left tackle. So, that could be an issue for them.
Yeah, I have high expectations for the pass rush in this game. I know they're coming off an injury, but I'm expecting good things. They're starting a rookie at center, just like us. True center, though, so it's a little different. They don't have Jenkins still. He hasn't played all year. They're still with what's his face is on physically unable to perform. David Bakhtiari. He's been on physically unable to perform this entire year as well. This is a favorable matchup, and the pass rush has no excuse this game. The game against the Raiders where the offensive line was really bad, they at least had the injury excuse. Against the Bengals, same thing. Probably even worse, the injury excuse, because no Alex Highsmith, no TJ Watt. They dropped Melvin Ingram into coverage. So, tough. There's no excuse coming into this game. You're without Tuitt, but you don't need Tuitt to be a good pass rush. So, I'm expecting some big things from them. I'm not talking about just sacks. I want to see pressure. I want to see Aaron Rodgers having to get the ball out faster because the pressure is getting there.
On the other side now, the Steelers' offense obviously has had a world of issues, and I mean we've talked pretty much at length about them. But let me try to sum it up. Starting first with the offensive coordinator Matt Canada / Ben Roethlisberger. This is an offense that is not creative enough in terms of getting guys open or utilizing things like play action or motion, either due to Ben Roethlisberger having too much input, which I fault the organization for not outlining that when they brought him back this year. Also, questionable play calling at times. Ben Roethlisberger obviously having more limitations at age 39, not fully buying into this offense, it seems, or not fully understanding what's going on in the offense and not trusting his offensive line, and having his physical issues, making bad decisions. The running game is magnitudes worse than where it was last year, and that's really saying something. The 32nd ranked rushing offense again, having issues behind an offensive line that cannot protect its quarterback, and each of the 5 starting offensive linemen were flagged in last week's loss to the Bengals. And the aforementioned receivers are not getting open. So there are issues at every single level. So before we even talk about the Packers defense, Mike Tomlin kind of outlined a 3-pronged attack for the way that the Steelers can improve. And his first prong was a better understanding by the coaching staff of the strengths and weaknesses of their players, having a better game plan, not running into a 5 or 6 man front that the Bengals have. Prong 2 was better fundamental execution, and then I believe prong 3 was kind of learning from that. So basically the Steelers just need to get better at football. We've had a little bit of time to think about it. Where are you at right now? What do you try to do if you're gonna be taking control of this offense? How do you try to fix things?
I have one request for this offense. They can't do anything right, basically. Their one thing I want them to focus on more than anything is the penalties. They need to get the penalties down to close to none. It has to be Nothing. Because the offense already can't move as it is. The penalties only hurt that cause. It's just moving them backwards, and they really, really need to get that together. That is my one request for the offense. I don't expect anything out of them at this point, but I think it would be a tremendous help. I've been saying it since week 1. I feel like I'm going to be saying it all season. The way for the Steelers' offense to win is to win the turnover battle and to not be the more penalized team. And the offense was so bad last game. They had 4 penalties on the offense alone, while the defense had 0 at that point in the game when they got 4 penalties. They have to be smart. They can't get stupid penalties. They can't have the ones where they're fighting each other or spitting in each other's face or anything like that. They have to be diligent and paying attention. They're in an opposing stadium. They have to be listening as best they can. They have to make sure they have the snap count so false starts are reduced. That is my expectation, because I just don't see them really fixing anything else other than you need to be playing a smart game. You need to be playing a game where you're not penalized, and so on and so forth. Win the penalty battle, and it'll give you a way better chance to win this game. That's my biggest focus for the offense, because there's just not much they can do. It doesn't matter what defense they go up against. There's just, at the moment, until I see a change from maybe Zach Banner coming in, maybe they shuffle the offensive line, it's just going to be relying on dink and dunk offense to get all the way down the field, and it's not very effective. So, again, just to reiterate, my number one thing is reducing penalties. I would love to see penalties, the entire team be penalized 3 or less times in this game.
You know what? That's actually a good place to kind of start. Is Mike Tomlin did kind of have a point when he said that we are close, and again, close doesn't mean good, but there were several. I wouldn't call them big, but several important plays where the Steelers had positive results negated by penalties. And I mean, let's just go to the first 2 drives of the game. There's a penalty for illegal formation on the second play from scrimmage. The Steelers gained 10 yards on that drive, but because of the penalty, they ended up having to punt. And then again, they had a 12-yard pass play to Najee Harris, but an offensive pass interference penalty on Chase Claypool kills that drive. There was a holding penalty on Kendrick Green. And again, like I said, every one of the starting offensive linemen had a penalty in this one. But they had penalties on their first... Let's see. Let me make sure I get this right. Their first 3 drives that all effectively ended their drives. They're not good enough to overcome stuff like this on a regular basis. You have to be able to succeed on first down. And when you're getting yourself in these penalties, even if you're not getting the penalty on first down, if you're getting it on second or third down, you're erasing all the hard work you might have gotten from first and second down. So I have to wholeheartedly agree with you. I think if this team can limit it to, what did you say, 3 for the team? I'll say 4.
For the team.
I'll say 4 in general, 2 per side, and maybe 5, 1 on a special teams. But you can't have any more than that. I mean, it's just hard. You've got to be able to succeed on first down. And look, it's a work in progress. I think my first order of duty for this offense is, look, they're not going to get anything going without a running game, right? I mean, do you just keep trying it until it works?
Yeah, I guess that's what you got to do. You got to keep trying until it works. Try different plays, try counters, try outside runs. Try more jet sweeps. I don't know. Do everything you can and try and figure it out. It's the best you could do, I guess.
See, the issue is that there's just there isn't a staple run the Steelers can kind of thrive on and say, okay, that's the thing we do well, because they aren't doing anything well. And I see what Mike Tomlin is saying, where a lot of times it is just one guy, and we knew that there were going to be growing pains, and they should get better over time, but I don't know, the time is just something that's not there. I expected growing pains from they were not great but doing well enough to, they'd be good, but right now they aren't even passable, and they need to at least get to a point where they're not just sabotaging the offense.
All we asked for going into this season was a 50% success rate on runs, and we are not getting anywhere close. We somehow regressed.
I think
so
we're
far
at
through
like
the year.
37% so far.
Yeah, I think, well, it was last year, like 42%, something like that, pretty close. Regardless,
Yeah, it's worse now for sure.
it's worse. It feels worse. It doesn't feel. Last year, it just. I don't think it felt as bad because it felt like it can improve. Right now, it doesn't feel like it can improve until Zach Banner comes back. So, and even then, it's like we're hoping that improves it. So, they got to be good at rushing in short yardage situation. And just going back to the penalties for one more time, I don't trust Matt Canada enough to be put into long situations, because if you're put into, let's say it's 2nd and 10, Ben just threw an incompletion, and now the offensive line gets a false start, 2nd and 15. I know damn well we're going to run on that play, and it's going to be a gain of 4, and it's going to be 3rd and 11, and now you're in a 3rd and long situation because you really want to run on 2nd and long. That's what this offense loves, running on 2nd and long. They're like, we can't even run at all, but we're going to do it in situations that we barely get the yards back that they lost. So that's one more thing on combining the run game and the penalties.
And let's kind of circle back to the whole Matt Canada thing. Never coached in the NFL prior to last season, was an assistant coach, handed the keys to the offense. You know, we can have that discussion of whether or not he's just another coach that Ben is familiar with versus whether they should have gotten someone different. I understand that you probably can't fully evaluate this guy until he has a quarterback that's meant for his system, but at the same time, I just think that you're seeing all the problems of an inexperienced offensive coordinator, whereas if the Steelers had brought in someone that was familiar with running an offense, I still feel like there are ways that this offense could be better tailored to its limitations. And I'm not saying it's an easy job. I'm not going to sit here and say that Canada's job is easy. It's the same thing we were trying to defend Randy Fichtner with last year. What does he have to work with? You know what I mean? So it's not completely fair. I get that, but at the same time, something there has to be something else in the tank for Mike Tomlin to say they had emptied all their bullets prior to that 4th down play is just ridiculous. And, you know, an NFL coach should not have that happen.
They were down to fullback shovel passes, so they were deep in that playbook, that's for sure.
Do you think that, I mean, we have no full way of knowing, but do you think that Ben has too much input in this offense?
You know what's going to really tell me if there's too much? I have to wait for later in the year. If we're put into a 4th and inches in a situation to go for it, and I don't see a quarterback sneak, yes. That is what is going to be the telltale sign. Yes. Because I remember exiting last season and saying, why is Randy Fichtner not using the quarterback sneak? What is happening right now? The quarterback is big. The quarterback is tall. The quarterback is weighs a lot. He's a big boy. He's called Big Ben. Why are we not doing this? And then I started thinking, like, what if this is Ben doesn't want to do it? It's a high percentage play on 4th and shorter, 4th and inches that never came in the offense. And if it's never run, I don't know if we'll get the chance to. I'll have to determine it later in the season. But if I never see it again this season, the answer is completely yes. He had way too much. He should have never been brought back if that's the case.
Are you sure that I wouldn't expect to see it because he's injured now too?
That is also true, but that's why I'll wait till later in the season.
I mean, are we sure that? See, I don't know. The bottom line is I don't know. I'm not 100% certain, but when I see what you saw in the All-22 tape that we saw all over Twitter this week, with that 3rd down play, it's a 4 verts hook concept with all 4 receivers running to the sticks and turning around on man coverage. And we talked about it on the last episode a little bit, but these routes are too independent of each other. what did we see when the Steelers played the Patriots in the early to mid to late 2000s and early 2010s? Whenever the Steelers would play them, you'd see those crazy crossing routes, these rub routes. Every route kind of complements each other. Everything is done to put defensive players in a bind. And I don't know if Ben Roethlisberger doesn't like certain things or what, but if he's saying he doesn't want to do things like that, and these are parts of the plays he's designing, look, we know that he has somewhat of a say, but the question is how much, and if it is too much, then why did the Steelers agree to that? They should have told him straight up, look, like, this is how it's going to be. You can either accept it and come back, or you can retire. You know what I mean? Like, why are they limiting themselves if he is, the one that's ultimately being the final decision maker on all this?
Who knows? It is really tough to tell. There's no way to tell unless they tell us, and even then, what can we believe? We still have controversy over the conspiracy of that fourth down play at the end of that game, because Matt Canada said they were in the end zone. So
many things about that.
Yeah, Matt Canada said they were in the end zone. So that it was a throw. Ben and Mike Tomlin said no, they were supposed to block. What? What do you?
Craig Wolf, and let's be clear, they were saying receivers were supposed to block. Craig Wolfley said that there were supposed to be linemen blocking. So someone is lying, or someone is either lying to cover up someone for, like maybe Ben for making the wrong decision, or something happened on that timeout. Remember, there was a timeout then, and something went horribly wrong with the communication from Canada to the offense, where no one knew what was going on. Regardless, it's just a horrific look.
Yeah, it's just not there is someone that didn't understand what they were doing, and there might be multiple people that,
which is inexcusable at this point of the season.
Just for the last play, your last chance at winning that game, it's why Tyler Boyd said they rolled over. There's someone that was not doing their job in that scenario. Multiple people, again. So, tough. Regardless of how you look at it, either Matt Canada and the wide receivers weren't doing it right, Ben Roethlisberger and the offensive linemen weren't doing it right. There was multiple people that messed up in that scenario, and it is inexcusable, as you said.
I have a hard time seeing how this offense is going to produce without a running game. My number one thing to try to get it going is just to spread it out. Najee Harris has been great in space. I think putting him in space, trying to lighten the box, is your best shot right now. I know there's all this talk about, the defenders are playing close to the line of scrimmage because Ben is having a tough time getting the ball deep down the field. I kind of get that, but tough shit, man. How many heavy boxes do you think Derrick Henry faces on a weekly basis? In fact, I had a tweet up not too long ago, something like 42% of the boxes he faces are 8-man boxes, and he still leads the league in rushing every year.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. They try and stop him, and it's not going to work. It just doesn't work. They try everything they can.
Here we go. I actually shared it. I didn't even think about it. Henry faces 8+ man boxes on 42.5% of his runs and still leads the league in rushing and has the second highest rushing yards over expectation. Don't tell me that it's just the quarterback. Yes, the quarterback can make a difference by passing it deep, but, I mean, let's be honest. Are we really expecting a 39-year-old quarterback? And like we said, he's not noodle-armed. He doesn't have a super weak arm, but he's got an inconsistent arm. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about. Do you wonder why Ben, still has the arm to whip it down the field sometimes, but then other times just won't have it? Like, do you wonder why that's the way it is?
Sometimes. I definitely do wonder why. It's like when he has the arm strength left, that he's just not using it.
If I may, look, Ben has always been more of a backyard football style of player. He's never been the cerebral type of players. He's never been the cerebral type like a Drew Brees or Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, right? That's not to say he's stupid either. Like, he's been in the league a long time. He knows what works, but it was always reasonable to expect that when Roethlisberger would start to decline, that he would decline more harshly because he relied more on his physical traits than those other guys who were more savvy regarding knowing what was going on, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I believe, and now I obviously don't know exactly, but as people age, a lot of time if they have these old injuries that they're dealing with, their body will compensate over the course of time, and they'll start doing things differently without realizing it. And what I'm getting at is that I think Ben's mechanics might change depending on certain situations. He might throw the ball some slightly differently, and that might lead to more passes being sailed over the head of a receiver or something like that. I think, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we've seen more inaccurate passes the last 2 weeks since he got injured as opposed to the week 1 game against Buffalo, which also was not great, but I don't think I'm that unreasonable to sit here and think that, okay, well, maybe Ben still has the arm. On occasion we see a really good throw down the field, but it's just so inconsistent. Yeah. Do you think I'm being outlandish? Do you think I think that's a good thought.
So the one thing that I will rebut is that week 1, I thought he was more inaccurate than he was in week 3. Week 2, he was actually pretty solid. I didn't actually really feel like there was that much inaccurate in week 2 against the Raiders. But week 1, that was probably the worst. I felt like the inaccuracy in that one was the worst we've seen so far this season, and also week 3 was then the next worst. But so that's the one thing I would say. Because the first 2 weeks, it was up and down, and then we're back to it was down, then up, then down again in week 3. That is the one thing that I would rebut in that.
Oh, sorry, you cut out there.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear much of what you were saying.
Oh, that's so weird. Okay, basically all I said is the one thing that I'd rebut in that situation is the first 2 weeks Ben wasn't as inaccurate as week 3. I actually think that in week 1 he was the most inaccurate of the first 3 games so far. I thought that was the worst. Thought week 2 was actually solid. I thought week 2 was okay. He still had a little bit of inaccuracy issues, but not much. And then week 3 was back to bad. So it was up and down, was what I was saying.
I need to find the time to chart all of his throws and kind of determine what all is going on.
It's cool because you could just get rid of the entire middle of the field. Don't even have to worry about it.
So I've been hearing that a lot of teams are actually trying to take away the middle and are daring him to throw to the outside, which I find interesting because I would have thought it'd be the opposite where you try to defend the outside and because you know he's not throwing to the middle. But I guess it's the opposite. So they're defending the middle and knowing that he's not even going to bother.
Yeah. That is an interesting thought. I wish we had more access to the All-22. The NFL really messed that up, too. What else is new?
I tell you what, yeah, I'm all for getting Game Pass someday. It's $100 for a year. So, like, to be honest with you, like, I'm not opposed to getting it at some point, but I'm not in a position to do that yet. But I've come closer and closer than ever to wanting to look at some of that stuff and then, like, save what I see in, like, a little clip and highlight things that I like to find.
Yeah, that'd be fun to do. That'd be fun to do with more funds. And also, if the NFL didn't mess it up, like, again.
Yeah, like they always do. Yeah, this team is just not capable of putting games on their back, and certainly not on a regular basis, and not the way things are right now. Look, I think the offensive line can get better, but it's not going to happen overnight. I think realistically you can start to expect some noticeable progress following the bye.
I think that would be a good time to wait till after the bye to see if there's some noticeable progress. I hope so. I hope that by then there's a little bit of progress.
In the meantime, I'm keeping things simple. I'm spreading it out and running it. I don't know. I think you have to still take. I think you just have to take your shots. Look, the Steelers have not had any success with this quick game. The quick game has been terrible this year, and it's because Ben has been inaccurate and the offensive line can't protect him. And I think that he's gun shy now because of it. he's getting hit anyways. You might as well stand back there and try to deliver on longer passes. There's not much you can do.
Yeah, no, not when the offensive line is blocking like that.
I just think the big thing is this team is not going to have... There is still an offense where Ben Roethlisberger can function, but it needs to have a good enough offensive line, and it needs to have either routes that are complementing each other, helping guys get open, or it needs to have receivers that get open themselves. Right now there's one receiver that gets open. The line is not protecting him. They're not opening up lanes in the pass game or in the running game. There are things they can do to mitigate things. They can run routes that complement each other, but I don't think that stuff is coming right away. And I think if that's not going to happen, it's up to the running game to at least become average. If we can just get 4 yards per carry on first down, which is basically can you run successfully on first down? That's what I want to see. I think if the Steelers can do that, I'm not saying they're going to put up 30 points, but I feel a lot better about their prospects for this game. I mean, realistically, they played decently on offense against the Raiders. That's not to say they played great, but like we said in this last episode, they have one drive per game where they dink and dunk their way down the field and can get it in. If they're much more successful on first down, I don't think it's unreasonable to think they could have multiple scoring touchdown drives.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a possibility. I hope for sure at some point this year we see multiple scoring touchdown drives. That'd be nice. I hope it's not done for the rest of the year. We saw it like once and that was it. But yeah, I think they could be productive. If they just have to manufacture that run game. The teams have to be afraid that the Steelers may actually be able to run. I mean, if you're not targeting the middle of the field and you can't run, or even if you're shutting down the middle of the field, like, you know what's going to happen. Like, you basically know where to defend. Steelers have to be able to get a little bit of a run game going.
And therein lies the need for more of those jet sweeps. Manufacture it in some way.
Yeah, any way possible. Counters, draws. I feel like we don't see draws at all in the offense.
Except for third and long.
Except for third and long, yep.
And sometimes second and long.
Exactly. Classic situations.
Man. Now, let's actually get into the Packers defense, because we have said
we
nothing
really
about them
didn't talk
yet.
about them. Something I wanted to ask before we got... I wanted to ask your opinion on Jair Alexander. I didn't want to say his name wrong.
I get the feeling you're low on him.
I am. Compared to other people. But I wanted to ask your opinion first.
So, Alright, so the Steelers and Packers obviously don't play all that often. I only see the Packers on a national TV spotlight or when they're playing the Lions when I'm watching with Will. I don't see them often. He seems like a good, solid cornerback to me. He is one of, traditionally, the last few years, he's been one of the highest graded, over the past 5 to 10 years, the top graded cornerbacks have been, Darrelle Revis, Richard Sherman, Casey Hayward, Chris Harris of the Broncos, and Alexander. Those have been, the top tier guys. So, I think he's solid, yeah, but to be honest with you, I can't make a full determination on him because I just haven't seen enough of him.
So I kind of get to that same point where it's I feel like I don't really understand the super hype for him. I feel like he's okay. He's more than okay. He's solid.
He made a great play on Sunday night.
I missed that play.
It was the interception of Jimmy G.
Yeah, I think I fell asleep by then. At that point, I can't remember. So, but regardless, I feel like he's just always been I don't know. Is he a top 5 corner? I feel like a lot of people have him inside the top 5. I don't think I'd put him in my top 5. I feel like that's where the discrepancy lies. People, I don't truthfully understand. I don't know. I just feel like he's not there yet, and everyone's there and I'm not. So that was just my question, because I am not as high as everyone else. I think he might be a top 10 corner. I'm pretty sure he is, but people have him in the top 5 and usually not 5. So I am not there.
Well, even if you have him like lower, like a top 10 cornerback or like just outside the top 10, this is still a pretty solid secondary. Eric Stokes was their first draft pick this year. You know, he's a 6 foot, 194-pound cornerback. He's likely to start with
starter.
Yeah, I was gonna say with Kevin King out, that actually might be a good thing for them. They should be able to pick on their number 3 cornerback. They have a decent safety tandem with Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage, who I think a lot of people were connecting to Pittsburgh at the time of the draft a couple years ago. This isn't the most outstanding secondary the Steelers have seen, and there could be a couple places they could kind of get after the Packers, but I do think that their secondary is the strongest part of their defense.
Yeah, I could agree to that. I like what they have there. Despite me pooping on Jair Alexander, I do still think he's a good corner. I think that Darnell Savage has become a good safety. I think Adrian Amos is a really good safety. Adrian Amos is pretty underrated. But yeah, so overall, I do think their secondary is the best part of their defense, and it's going to be the people to look out for. But funny enough, their best player on defense for me is not Jair Alexander, or
Kenny
at least
Clark.
the one I'm most. It's Kenny Clark. Yeah.
Yep. And that's
Scary.
why, and it's frustrating because I look at the rest of this defensive front, and especially now without a guy like Zadarius Smith, and I look, hey, you know, this could be a pretty good opportunity for the ground game. This looks like a team that the Steelers should be able to at least do better in terms of their ground game, especially you mentioned with Jack Heflin possibly missing this game. So the lack of depth along the defensive line. But Kenny Clark is he's a good football player, man. He's not at the level of guys like Aaron Donald and Cam Hayward, but that's also definitely not to say that he's not a good football player. He's a pretty good guy. I don't like the idea, especially of Kendrick Green having to face him. That is a mismatch of damn near epic proportions right now.
I was literally going to say that. I was like, he is perfectly made to counter Kendrick Green. Like, he is literally probably Kendrick Green's nightmare other than Aaron Donald. And it's just like, that's tough. It's going to be tough to deal with Kenny Clark's bull rushing again as Kendrick Green. Like, it's going to be hard for him to handle that. It is going to be scary, but we're going to have to make it through it together. So, yeah, that is the biggest matchup in this game, I think, for me. It's just like, how bad is Kenny Clark going to win against Kendrick Green? How much help is Kendrick Green going to need? Or how much help is the guards going to need against Kenny Clark? It's a scary prospect.
When talking about the Steelers' offensive line, they've been pretty rough so far. I mean, let's go across it so far. Obviously, Dan Moore has had his struggles, but I think for a 4th-round rookie, he's not doing too bad. But overall, in terms of left tackles in the NFL, he's a lot closer to 32 than 1.
Oh, yeah, he's in the bottom half.
He's certainly not Austin Jackson, but he's not a ton better.
Yeah, no, he's not Austin Jackson. That guy was awful. I can't believe the Dolphins took him as a first-round pick. And with our first-round pick, too. Ew. Gross. But, yeah, Dan Moore, I feel like, for a 4th-round rookie, played well. But that doesn't mean played well for NFL. So he's played like below average for NFL. So, I mean, it's the best of what we could do right now. I just gotta hope as the season progresses he gets better. He's a guy that I feel like is going to be better down the line. Like in next year, he'll come back and play a little better. But he's a guy where if he's the one major new starter, you can live with. But when he's like you're relying on him to be like a guy, that's just trouble. Kevin Dotson has actually probably been the most disappointing of the group so far. A guy that played really well last year in limited time, and this year has shown why that limited time isn't something you should hang your hat on, because he has been quite bad this year. Yeah, the expectations for him were the highest by far. He was the one that's like, well, even if everything is wrong, you still got Kevin Dotson, and you don't. He's just not been very good. He's been okay, and that's not very good. We're seeing a slump like this sucks, really does, because it was the one thing you could hold your hat on the offensive line, is that you have one piece that's going to be at least solid, and he's not. He's just okay, and he's more closer to below average as well. So it's a tough pill to swallow, but also hoping for him to get better down the stretch when the offensive line gels a little bit better.
You talked about Kendrick Green. That guy's you've been bang on with your assessment of him to this point of his career. Just 3 games, but I mean, you hit the nail on the head with him. I don't like the idea of switching guys, this early in their careers, but I do have big concerns about the way he's played, especially with a guy like Kenny Clark.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers might just be forced their hand. It does feel like a mismatch of cataclysmic proportions here. This could be one where you have to force your hand and might have to put J.C. Eisenhower, who's also not built for Kenny Clark, but just might be a little bit better, a little bit more experienced than Kendrick Green is. So it's something to consider. I still hold that Green should have never won the job over Eisenhower this year. I just think it was a bad pick, and they forced it because they made that bad pick, and they said, well, we weren't going to address center until 3rd round, and we took a guard to play center, so we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna make it happen.
It's just tough. I have my doubts about him being a long-term center, to be honest with you, man. I'm not saying he can't, but he is not the slam dunk that Marquise Pouncey was.
Oh, absolutely not. There's 100% a chance that he just never gets it together because he is starting off at a disadvantage. I mean, he's undersized. Like, he is small and with somewhat smaller arms. So the stronger opponents that with a really good bull rush are going to mess him up throughout his entire career. He's going to have the hardest time with that. He has to hone in on his skills and work on almost everything else to become a really good center in the NFL and a long-time starter. He has to become really good he has to become top of the league in a bunch of things, like little things like hand placement, or little things that seem little, like hand placement, getting his feet set, snap to block time. He's got to get better at those things so that he can make it as a center. He's got a lot to work on.
Expecting all of this from a guy that declared for the draft early and played, what did he play, like 9 games at center in college?
It was something like that. It was not a lot. He played 1 in the year prior, and then he played a good amount in 2020. I had it right the first time. 1 in 2019, and then I think like 8 in 2020.
I hate bashing on the guy, but you just can't ignore the fact that there are so many signs that say he should have been either a redshirt guy this year or, should have kept him at guard just for the time being, maybe try the switch to center next year. There's just all of the biggest fears you had. And, it's funny because we're not experts, but sometimes, sometimes what is obvious is true. And you put in the time, you watched what you saw what you saw, and you noted clearly that there's a lot working against him right now. And it's just, he could end up being a pretty good player even by year's end. But again, we asked the question last episode, where was this team supposed to be going into the year? Were they supposed to be competing? Because if that's so, this was the wrong pick. Just was.
Yeah. Yeah. People are paid to look at rookie tape. People are paid and they have better access to rookie tape. And I just feel like they really did not. I feel like they were watching different things.
Or they just whoever pulled, maybe someone overruled someone, or maybe they liked the good qualities because the good qualities are really good, right? And that's another thing about this offense. These guys, this offensive line is supposed to be, outside of Trey Turner, their strength is supposed to be on the move, right? Why aren't these guys on the move more?
Who knows? They're all young and mobile besides maybe like Trey Turner, but who knows?
I'd be trying to get they can't block, man up on anybody. get them out in space. You know, you talk about getting the ball in the hands of your playmakers. Get those offensive linemen in space.
Yeah. Yep. It's probably your best bet to see if they got anything good, anything worth doing.
Oh, this took a turn. Oh yeah, and then Trey Turner. I don't know. He's not the worst player in the world. If he's your worst offensive lineman, that's fine. You can live with that. But the Steelers are relying on him to be a leader and to be like the anchor. And there were a lot of question marks about him beforehand. And yeah, he hasn't been great.
No, he's not. He's not been great either. PFF graded him out as the best offensive player last week, but I just still not feeling it. The visual test is not. He's not passing that, and that's somewhat important. So, it's just not been good from him either.
And then Okorafor gets hurt
Concussed.
after he gets hurt too, and you know he was playing okay, I guess, but he had his struggles too. And now that means Joe Haig likely starts at right tackle. Should help a bit in the run game, but Haig gave up a sack on Sunday too. So we're going way off on a tangent here, I guess. But again, this whole offensive line, I felt a lot better with. I'd feel so much better with their opportunities in this game, especially for running the ball, if Kenny Clark weren't there.
I would too. Kenny Clark being right in the middle, right staring down Kendrick Green is just a tough pill to swallow. Very, very, very tough. You're not going to really see many matchups like that because not a lot of teams have a nose tackle like Kenny Clark, other than or just a defensive tackle, other than the Rams and I guess the Steelers, if you want to call Cameron Hayward a defensive tackle or nose tackle. Kind of plays on the edge, so not really, but I guess you could call him that. But yeah, it's just a unfortunate matchup that they could take advantage of. That could determine the game. We'll see.
You want to discuss the merits of J.C. Hassenauer, possibly?
J.C. Hassenauer.
Let's also be clear. I think Ben is more in favor of him, even if he doesn't say it out loud, just because he's more familiar with him. He's not going to be good in the running game. Let me be honest. Kendrick Green's probably better there, but he probably knows the calls better. In fact, I'd be sure that he does, being more familiar with the team. And I have to think he's can at least handle the pass rushing better. Now, Kenny Clark's a tough assignment for him, but I have to think he's a better day-to-day option at this point, at least in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Birmingham Iron legend J.C. Hassenauer started with the Falcons.
Never forget.
Won 2 national championships when he was in college because he was at Alabama. Alabama deemed him good enough when he was youngin. He's played in more games than Kendrick Green. There's not much. There really, really isn't much. I mean, our choices are slim, and basically you'd pick, because Hassenauer again is undersized with shorter arms as well, similar to Green. It's just really you're going based on experience, where you think Hassenauer might be better because he has more experience doing this stuff. So that's basically what Hassenauer's merit is that he has more time, more playing time.
I need to see. I'll have to do a study sometime. J.C. Hassenauer might be the last player from the Birmingham Iron still in the NFL.
Possibly.
They
don't even talk about it anymore. It's kind of forgotten about.
No. Well, see, that's what happens when there's another tangent, but I hate that all these different leagues, these different, the Spring League, the Fan Control Football League, which is a little different, the XFL 2.0, the AAF, why did they all have to, do this separately? It's and I understand that some of it's they're competing with the NFL, where the AAF was seen more as a supplemental system. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall the NFL was more in support in favor of the AAF than they have been with any other football league at this point.
Yeah, I feel like that's fair to say.
I mean, shoot, Jerry Jones was going to have the championship game played at the Cowboys practice facility.
Yeah.
right? In Frisco, yeah. And I mean, obviously he was in favor of it. I just, I'm not going to reopen that stuff again. But I just never understood why all these leagues had to take one shot after another 3 years in a row. Why couldn't they just have all banded together? They would have been much stronger and they could have been legitimate. I'm such a nerd and loser that I would love to have an NFL minor league. I just think that would be cool.
It would be cool. I think I'd watch that because, well, it's not the NFL. I think it's like a good in between college and NFL.
Well, and on top of that, it gives a place for really good college stars that aren't really NFL players a chance to either develop or thrive. And we talk about the development game for these players. Offensive linemen take 3 years to develop. That's when they grow. Or what about the quarterbacks that take forever? What about Josh Rosen? Could Josh Rosen have used a place like that maybe? I mean, come on. What about, this name is going way back, Jordan Lynch with Northern Illinois. He was a star in college football. Or Colin Klein with Kansas State. Those guys could have been stars in a minor league football setting, but we're getting way off topic here. That'll have to be a further discussion for another time. Let's circle back to this whole Packers-Steelers thing one last time. Offensively, I think it's going to come down to, can you avoid turning the football over? Can you avoid the penalties? I think offensively, without factoring in turnovers the defense gives you, I think you need to put up 17 points on offense, and then you need to hopefully get 1 or 2 turnovers that you can punch in.
Yeah, 17 before points off of turnovers, I think, is a good number to shoot for. I think that's what you need to win this game for sure. That's like the minimum too, because I mean,
go ahead.
Packers could just hang up a whole 40 in this game. Just if they wanted to, if they're all gelling correct.
And it's not crazy. 17 points sounds sad, and for all the despair, the Steelers aren't far from 17 offensive points. Just based off offense and not getting turnovers. They had 10 last week. They're only a touchdown off of that, and they've been in position. They are in position to capitalize more. They just don't have much of a margin for error. And, for all the issues they've had, if they can, like you said, not turn the ball over, I guess that's the number 3 things in whatever order you want. I guess number 1, don't turn the football over. Number 2, cut down seriously on the penalties. And number 3, have slightly better success on first down. I think that will make a world of a difference.
I think it will too. I think that could just be the difference in the entire season for the Steelers. And just quickly, because you got me interested in looking into it, there's one other Birmingham Iron player that is currently on an NFL roster. It's only one. I went through every single one other than that. That was on their final roster anyway. And that is...
Oh, is it that cornerback? What's his name?
You're right on cornerback. He was number 35 with the Iron.
It's not Jack Tocho, is it? I forget the guy's name. He used to be with the Falcons, right?
Did this guy used to be with the Falcons? No, he was undrafted with the Browns at the time in 2018.
Oh, I'm thinking of Devonte Bowsby, but he was with Orlando. Who is it?
Elijah Campbell is with the Miami Dolphins currently.
Interesting.
I remember Tocho too, though. That's funny. He was good safety.
We should at some point go through all the rosters of the old AAF teams and see how many are left.
Yeah, some of these guys are in the Canadian League, but just other than Hassenauer.
Stefan Logan just retired. Yeah, J.C. Hassenauer still holding up. I'm still surprised Trent Richardson never got a look, although I kind of get it in hindsight.
Yeah, wasn't very effective. His yards per carry even in that league was not very good.
No.
It's just a touchdown machine.
Faux show. All right. Any final thoughts on this game? Special teams? Anything there?
No.
Alrighty. Shall we get into the Week 4 slate of games?
Sure.
Do you get any vibes from the Bengals-Jaguars game?
No, not really. I mean, I was happy that I took the shot even after getting burned last week by the Texans to pick the Jaguars plus 7.5. I thought they were going to win that game, but they kept it within 7.5. So
Finally saw that first overall pick, Trevor Lawrence. Not the entire game, but for parts of it. Wouldn't you agree? I finally saw
yeah,
why he was the first overall pick.
there was some flash in the pan.
Mm-hmm. All right. Bengals at 3-1 though. That's concerning. The Steelers don't get the Jaguars this year, so uphill battle. But the Bengals in first place right now. Let's move on to our Sunday slate of games. The Washington football team at the Atlanta Falcons. Washington is a 1.5 favorite. How are you feeling on this one?
I'm going to pick Washington to cover here.
Alrighty. Austin, you've got to get going real quick. Do you want to just give me your picks real quick? Any thoughts? You can run down the line here. I can.
It's not that big of a rush, but I have Houston Texans at Bills is Buffalo minus 17. I have Houston plus 17. That's a big line. What do you have there?
I have the Bills covering. I just think that the Texans with Davis Mills are not a good team, and even though that's a big line, I think the Bills are hitting their stride, so I like them to win big.
Lions at Bears. Oh my. Chicago is favored by 3 points. I have the Lions plus 3. What do you got?
Also, the Lions. Yeah, the Bears' offense was a train wreck, and I think the Lions have been close, so I think they get it this time and win.
Panthers at Cowboys. Dallas is favored by 4.5. I have the Cowboys covering. How about you?
Panthers have a good defense, but they haven't played a good offense like the Cowboys yet, so give me the Cowboys lay the points.
I will move on to the Colts at Dolphins. Miami is favored by 2 points as the Colts are looking at staring down 0-4. I have Dolphins covering. What do you got?
And unless if Carson Wentz is healthy, I have a hard time picking them, even though the Dolphins aren't great right now either. It's kind of a toss-up, but I will take the Dolphins to cover.
Browns at Vikings. Cleveland minus 2. Oh, also, I don't think you picked your lock of the week, so I don't know if you have that in your head yet. But the Browns at Vikings. Cleveland is favored by 2 points. I am going to pick the Browns to cover, and that is my lock of the week. That's why it reminded me. What do you have for the game?
I actually have the Vikings plus 2. This is a matchup of two similar offenses, coming from the same system. I actually am going to take the Vikings in a surprise upset win here.
Okay. I'm moving on. I'm going to go to the Giants at Saints. Saints are favored by 7 points. I have the Saints covering.
I agree. The Saints defense is good. The Giants offense is not.
Moving forward, the Titans at Jets. Tennessee is favored by 6. I have the Jets plus 6. Without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, it's going to be tough.
Should be difficult, but I'm not sure about the Jets until Zach Wilson stops throwing the ball to the defenses. So, I don't know. I have a hard time picking the Jets until I see otherwise. Give me the Titans to cover.
Okay. Chiefs at Eagles. Kansas City is favored by 7. I'm going to pick the Eagles plus 7. The Chiefs defense is keeping every team in it.
Jalen Hurts has started to regress after a good opening week. I like the Chiefs in this one to bounce back after 2 difficult losses. Give me the Chiefs to cover.
4 o'clock games now. Cardinals at Rams. Rams are favored by 4 points. I have the Rams covering. What do you got?
Divisional games are funky, but the Kyler Murray Cardinals have never beaten the Rams. Give me the Rams.
Seahawks at 49ers. Keeping with that funky. San Francisco is favored by 3. I have Seahawks plus 3. What do you got?
Wouldn't touch this one with a 10-foot pole. Don't know where to go. Gonna pick the opposite of you, so I'll take the Niners.
All right, I'm perfect. Ravens at Broncos. That line is completely even. Give me Denver here. What do you got?
Against all... No, I'm kidding. I won't go with the tie. I'll also take... I'll take the Ravens here. It's going to be tough if either of these teams win because the Steelers play Denver next and they could be 4-0, or if Baltimore wins, the Steelers are even further behind. So not going to be enjoying watching this one.
No. Buccaneers at Patriots is Sunday Night Football. Tampa Bay is favored by 7. What do you got?
I actually like the Patriots here. It's funny. There's a lot going against them, but I feel like the crowd's going to be whipped into a frenzy, and I think it's going to be a close game. I still think the Buccaneers win, but I like the Patriots to keep it close. So Patriots +7.
I'm going with Tampa Bay covering. Last game is Monday Night Football. It's the Raiders at the Chargers. Chargers are favored by 3. I have the Chargers covering. What do you got here?
I agree. The Raiders have made a bunch of pressure on quarterbacks recently, but they haven't played an offensive line like the Chargers yet. So I think that'll be the difference. Chargers cover.
Okay, so now we just have our bold predictions and final score. I'm just going to give it all right now, and the X Factors. So my X Factors are Deontay Johnson and TJ Watt. I think that these two guys coming back from injury is going to make a big deal for the Steelers. I think they're both going to be contributors in this game. I think that they should make a difference. Like we talked about earlier, if we had to choose between Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson for this game, I'm taking Deontay Johnson, especially for the short passing. TJ Watt should fix the pass rush from what we saw last week, which was pitiful. At least I'm hoping. I think he's a difference maker here. Then, as for my bold predictions, I have Watt re-entering the Defensive Player of the Year race and getting 3 sacks in his return. He's got a lot of catching up to do because Myles Garrett got 4.5, and then Chandler Jones had that 1 week with 5 sacks, so that's tough, but I think he's going to come back strong. Then Deontay Johnson is going to make 3 competitive catches, including 1 for a touchdown. And I define competitive as there's like a defender also ripping at the ball. I think he's going to win 3 of those. And then one weird one is that there are over 200 yards of penalties in this game. And my final score prediction is going to be that the Packers do end up winning 36-23, which is going to cover and is going to be scoregami. 36-23 has never happened before. So it is an extra bold prediction in itself. So there's that. Do you want to run through yours?
Sure, but if you got to get going, I understand. Feel free to say goodbye if you got to get going.
I do got to get going. So thank
Alrighty,
you,
man.
everybody, for listening. This is me saying goodbye and signing off. Everybody have a good night. Enjoy the rest of John's picks and stuff. And, yeah, go Steelers.
All right, see you, buddy. All right, so not much left here. Let me just run through what I have here. The 2 guys I want to focus in on this week on offense, it's going to be Pat Fryermuth. This is a guy that hasn't fully outsnapped Eric Ebron yet, but Ebron has added practically nothing to this team, certainly not as a blocker, and has dropped several passes, I believe only catching 1 of his 6 or 7 targets on the year. Pat Fryermuth caught his first NFL touchdown a week ago, and I think is going to be a big difference in this one. I have him scoring 2 receiving touchdowns and putting up over 100 yards on the day. And defensively, I'm looking at James Pierre. Pierre is going to be a guy matched up a lot on a guy like Devonte Adams, and I think that after struggling to cover Jamar Chase deep down the field, I'm expecting him to have a bigger game, and I'm predicting him to have 3 pass deflections and 1 sacked on the day, and I think I don't know that that's necessarily a crazy bold prediction, but I do expect him to impact the game in this one. Overall, when looking at this game, the Steelers are 6.5-point underdogs at Lambeau Field. It's just hard to pick the Steelers right now with the way their offense has been playing. I have hope, and I feel that the offense can improve over the course of time, but this week there's a lot to ask for. Maybe if the Steelers can block Kenny Clark consistently, they can have a solid running game, but until I see it, it's hard to predict that they will. On the other side, defensively, they should be able to get pressure on Rodgers, but unless if their offense helps them out, I have a hard time seeing the Steelers winning this one. Unfortunately, I have the Steelers falling to 1-3, losing 27-17 to the Green Bay Packers. And that'll wrap up today's episode, Season 6, Episode 26 of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you, as always, for listening, and please feel free to check out our episodes on our new home for the podcast on anchor.fm/strongerthansteel. We appreciate your listening to this podcast, and we appreciate all the support. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave us a question at Anchor or email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, thank you, as always, for listening to the podcast, brought to you by Austin and John. Have a good night and enjoy the game on Sunday.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.